Hello, it's Amy from Be Healthy Enough. I help women over 50 get moving and feel better, even as those darn aches and pains of age start to creep in. And this is what we're talking about today. I'm interviewing occupational therapist Jean Lee to answer and address one of the top questions I get when we start an exercise program. Oh my gosh, my hands hurt, my wrists hurt, my thumb hurts, my shoulder hurts, my neck hurts, my back hurts. We step through her advice in preserving our joints through daily function and movement and exercise. She gives us some great tips. It was a great, fun interview. I learned a lot, and I share more about all of the things she's talking about below. Hope you enjoy this interview. Welcome everybody to another webinar, sort of workshop slash interview with one of our fellow members, Jean Lee. I'm looking over here. She's a certified occupational therapist, therapy assistant for 41 years. The majority of her career has been concentrated on hand and upper extremities, and she's primarily worked in orthopedics, but also in experience in burns. Oh gosh, and cumulative trauma, traumatic injuries, and work hardening. I've never heard that term, work hardening. That's interesting. She's a mother of 2 boys, been married for 35 years, and she's also a 27-year cervical cancer survivor. That's huge. And a 6-year survivor of thyroid cancer. But over the last year, think about this is what she's done. She's adopted a whole food, plant-based diet and lifestyle, which is helping her be healthy enough to do all the things she loves to do. What she's done too, get this, 20 triathlons since the age of 50. That's amazing. And she wants to be active well throughout the rest of her life. Today, what we're going to do is tap into her vast knowledge. And she also has a passion for helping women over 50. So this is great to move more functionally. She's going to share her tips to maintain a good range of motion and also teach us some tips and tricks to protect and preserve our joint function through the use of exercise and exercise modification. Because remember, modifying is not cheating. Okay, Jean, by the way, I forget, what part of the country are you in?
I am outside of Philadelphia. I'm in South Jersey, but very close to Philadelphia.
That's right. We had talked right before the Super Bowl. I remember that one.
Yeah, we don't want to talk about the Super Bowl.
Sorry about that. I completely forgot about that, and that triggered. I was voting for the Eagles just for you.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
So let's get started. I mean, so my purpose and my business is all about helping women over 50 get moving and feel better, even as those darn aches and pains of age start to creep in, and they do. So
Yes,
we have to pay special attention to the things that we do with our form, or listening to those little signals our bodies is tapping on our shoulder about, because if we don't listen to those signals, it will start screaming. So in general, Jean, what are some things that we can do to preserve, there's my cat, preserve and protect our joint function?
So generally speaking, and I think we touched on this when we talked before, is I am in the practice of making people move following an injury, following trauma, whatever. It's very hard to convince people that even though you have some pain, it's okay to move as long as you're doing it properly. And as you said, as we get older, some of these things creep in. We actually have a fancy term for it in therapy. It's called joint protection energy conservation. And it's basically just to keep moving, but to do it in a smart way where you're protecting your joints. We had talked about a lot of people having thumb and wrist pain when they're doing workouts, whether they're hard workouts, easy workouts, weight-bearing workouts. And we're lucky to have you, because we have a whole vast array of things we can do. And I do love how encouraging you are when you say, if this is too much, then just do this or just do nothing. And there is no better advice than that, because moving is still moving. One of the jokes I always, one of the things I always hear in therapy is I'll get somebody after a traumatic injury where we're just starting to kind of start some real motion, and they're very depressed and they're like, oh, I can't do a push-up. And I said, you're at the finish line. You're going full body weight bearing and you haven't moved in 6 weeks and you've had a traumatic injury. You're at the finish line. Let's see if you can pick up your mug today. And use that as your biofeedback. And each week, each month, you'll see that you can do more. We're very hard on ourselves. We're very hard on ourselves, and our expectations are sometimes too high. So as we age, the aches and pains, pain in the base of the thumb, in the wrist, is very common. I was looking up the statistics the other day, and I think it's in the 60 or 70% of women over the age of 50 have base of the thumb pain and wrist pain.
Yeah, that's one of the biggest ones, because I'm a big proponent of in making sure our muscle mass is good, because strong muscles lead to a strong, resilient body. And to do that, I'm preaching all about lifting heavier weights. And as
Yes.
soon as I do, I get these emails or messages, Amy, my hands hurt. What do I do? So yeah, we have living
It's
data.
a fine line to walk.
Yeah. So
It's
what
a
do we
fine
do?
line.
What can we do when that starts to happen?
So one of the things that's called, and of course it would have to be, diagnosed by your doctor through X-ray or whatever, it's called CMC arthritis. That's the most common form of base of the thumb pain into the wrist.
What? Say that
CMC,
one more time. CMC.
CMC, it stands for carpometacarpal
Okay.
joint arthritis. And it's kind of that saddle joint down at the base of your thumb. It articulates with your wrist
Yep.
and it lets you pinch, gives you stability for pinching and things like that. But as soon as you go to bear weight on it, ouch, my aching thumb, or as you're holding those weights.
Yeah.
A couple of things that I like that you could, and again, there's a lot of differential diagnosis for thumb pain. There probably at least 4 or 5 others I can think of. That's just the most common. And they call it osteoarthritis, but it's the wear and tear arthritis. It's
Okay.
not the rheumatoid like your grandmom had. It's just really wear and tear arthritis.
Okay.
Um, so one of the things, and I've been there myself. I have, started exercise programs, and then as they progress, they've required so much weight bearing. I've had pain, and I've stopped. Like, I'm not doing that. I'll find something else. I'll go get on my bike, and that's fine too. But I want to do the weightlifting. So one of the ways you can modify when it's weight bearing is, of course, if you're. I'm trying to think of some. Okay, so if it's a push up
Mhm.
and you're putting that weight on and it hurts,
Mhm.
you can always do it on a countertop by gripping something like this,
Mhm.
rather like with our wrist extended and flat like this. That will take a lot off. And quite frankly, I have already had surgery on. I had STT arthritis, which is again a different diagnosis, but it's that same kind of pain. I couldn't put any weight on my hands at all. And now it's much better. I had it done in 2020. It's better, but it still bothers me, and doing dips and things like that. So
Mhm.
I have to modify all of that, but I still do them, and I do feel like they're very effective. I just do them a little bit differently. A counter is great for push-ups where you can hold like that. Um, Yoga blocks work great.
Hmm.
Like,
I don't know about that.
if you're doing like a yoga pose, like a downward dog, and again, you're putting all that weight forward, just use some yoga blocks.
Yeah.
That will just offset that weight a little bit. Um, I have a couple little notes down here.
Yeah.
Another little trick is if you use a 6-sided barbell and you hold on to that and do your push-up,
Oh.
that will take a little bit because you're not full weight bearing on an extended wrist like this.
You just reminded me, my husband bought it's called the Perfect
Perfect
Push-Up.
push-up. I love
And
them.
it's just like a little, you can hold on to, but it twists. And
Yep.
so you get the direct pressure going this way, not right there.
Yes. I have a
And
set of them at work that I use.
do you?
And
Okay.
and we actually we use them a little bit different. And I'm probably going to move into another area when talking about the shoulders. But when we're working the scapular muscles,
Mhm.
some people just don't even know how to do that. So the perfect push up on the wall, doing
Oh,
this, it teaches them how to protract and retract their shoulder blades.
oh.
and they can hold it better too. So,
Oh, I may have to
um,
do. I might have to do a workout with those perfect push-up things.
I know, right? Exactly. And then as we were talking earlier,
Yeah.
another great modification if heavy weights are bothering you are the bands.
Yeah.
Um, there's a lot of different kind of bands out there. Some have like a handle like this.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, I find a lot of my patients do better with this when they're having hand pain, or even if they have some like diabetic neuropathy where their
Mm.
fingertips don't feel so good. Sometimes it's just what happens when they're holding the weight is they're holding so tight that so they can feel it,
Yeah.
that ends up hurting their wrist as well. So
Okay.
by using just a little bit of a built-up handle and a little bit of a padding, they can hold it better, and then they actually get the benefits of the exercise, whether it's like a bicep
Yeah.
curl or tricep or whatever. These are pretty easy to find on Amazon or
Yeah,
wherever.
no, no, no. I have several and they're easy. Now when I use the band sometimes, so if it's too heavy, I notice that my wrists are cockeyed and
Yes,
and then my wrists start to hurt with that. So I guess that I'm answering my own question is make sure you keep that wrist and don't let your form go. I think that's probably advice for most exercises is if your form is off, then that can lead to some problems.
exactly.
Even when you're lifting the weights, I can see maybe if your wrists or you're gripping too tight. Now that,
Or as you start to fatigue, like you may
yeah,
be able to initiate that movement. Our strongest, our strongest arc of motion is mid-range.
okay.
We're weak in initiation
Mhm.
and weak at the end. It's mid-range that is our strongest motion. So what happens a lot of time is we'll pick up a weight and our form's not so good to initiate it, then mid range we get okay, and then at the end we start struggling again.
Mm.
And a lot of the compensation there is
Mhm.
doing this with the wrist, which also makes you hold it too tight.
Yeah.
Okay, so a couple of things you can do there: back off the weights. And again, I do not disagree with you lifting heavy weights. I definitely know how great that is for us. But sometimes we have to build up to it or just maybe use a different method. If the cords don't work, there's always like the bands too.
Yep.
You can hold this down with your foot and wrap it around and curl that way. If gripping is a huge problem,
Mhm.
you can even use a weight cuff. And a lot of times people don't think about that.
I
Did you
don't
ever
know.
see the cuff weights?
No. Oh, no, no, no. I haven't, I don't think.
Okay, I should have brought one. I'm trying to see if I have one laying around here. I use them at work a lot. They're like long and they're like segmented. They go from 1 pound up to like 20, and they Velcro around.
Oh,
Sometimes you'll see like basketball players have them on their ankles to try to increase their jump or whatever.
oh yeah. No, I know what
Um,
you're talking about now. Okay. Oh,
But
that's
like
a good
if
idea.
I have a person like with an amputation who can't hold something, I'll put a weight cuff on
Oh,
them.
just like a little strap around there. Okay. I've seen ankle straps. I've never seen them, but of course, yeah, you could do that. And then your wrists
Yeah,
are completely free. What a
yeah.
great idea.
You
Never
can
thought
just
about it.
Velcro it around, and you can do your tricep.
Yeah,
You can do
you
your
could do
butt,
everything.
and
Yeah.
you're not gripping at all.
Yeah. Oh,
You're
that's
not,
a great idea. I
you
never
know.
thought about that.
And again, I don't. You know, we have stores around here called Five Below. They're kind of like I don't know if you have them out
No.
west, but they're kind of like a glorified dollar store, but they everyone knows about Five Below. They have this huge section of exercise stuff. They sell barbells, they sell jump ropes, they sell the physio balls and things like that. And everybody, like a lot of my patients, they'll be like when I'm putting them on a home program, they're like, "Oh, I'll go to Five Below and get some of this." And it works just fine. They have the cup weights, and I'm sure you have something similar out there. But
Yeah.
because I don't like people to spend a lot of money. I'm
I
always trying to
know.
save them money.
Yeah.
But some of those modifications are really great if you're having thumb or wrist pain or and it's just as effective. I think people
I know.
sometimes feel like if I'm not doing it like you are, then I'm not. I'm not doing it right. And
Yeah, and that's what worries me a little bit about the online workouts is that they see me who this is my career. I've been doing this for a while.
yes,
And if I'm not doing it like Amy, I'm a loser. That is so far from the truth. If you're pressing play and you're getting started and you're just moving, man, I
absolutely.
am so proud of you. I could care less if you do it exactly like me. And that's what
I
we have to get off of our shoulders, that little devil going, oh, well, I can't do that, so I'm not going to do anything.
So I'm not going to do anything. Exactly. Well, full disclosure, and I think I had told you this before. I had quite the year in 2020 before the pandemic. It was when I turned 60 and it was supposed to be the year of Gene. And it started out in February. I took a tumble skiing. I had just learned to ski at 58, so I wasn't a very good skier. Um, I took a tumble and I fractured my humerus and tore my rotator cuff. Now, being that this is what I do for a living, luckily I called one of the surgeons I work with. He's like, I'll see you Monday. um,
You had connections.
yeah, and it paid. So I had to wait 2 weeks before I had my rotator cuff fixed for my humerus to heal so that they could anchor the rotator cuff. Fast forward, all that happened, and then the world shut down. So we stayed open because we see trauma and post-op patients. We stayed open during the pandemic, but we were not super busy. So I had nothing better to do than to rehab my shoulder at work, which worked out. I went back after 4 weeks against my doctor's advice, but I'm glad I did. um, and I had a lot of time to work on my shoulder. But even now, 3 years later, I had a great result. I'm very happy with what I had done. But it's I still cannot come straight up. Like this one goes out to the side, and that's just something from surgery. Um, so when we're doing shoulder work with you,
Yeah.
and I do love that you always decrease your weights when you're going overhead. That's perfect. That is, we don't need heavy weights, too heavy weights overhead if our form's not good. But with this hand, I'm still using like a 3 or 4. I can do a little heavier here. And I do it separately.
So tell
I
us,
do them
so we've moved,
separately.
so we're kind of moving up the body. So we worked on wrists,
Oh,
things that we can do. Before we move off the wrist, is there anything that we can do preventatively? The wrist exercises. I know everybody, we are not doctors.
right.
She's an occupational therapist, but if please talk to your doctor about trying any of these things that we're mentioning. But there are probably some simple range of motion things that we can do with our hands or
Yes.
anything?
So, well, one of the things is your grip strength comes from your forearm.
Oh,
Okay. So there is no shame in getting a little weight and doing some forearm strengthening, just like over the arm of a chair
mhm.
and just working like this, back and forth, turning over and doing like this.
Just like little, I got my little 2 pounder here, just
Yes.
holding it like this over the counter and just
Yeah.
doing,
And just kind of supporting your forearm and
okay.
just coming back,
And then,
back and forth like this, go nice and slow, really activate those extensor muscles, turn it
okay,
over and work this way. So having a strong forearm will definitely help your grip.
okay,
And if your grip is weak, I'm not a fan of squeeze a ball, especially if you're having thumb pain, but
okay,
something that's soft enough that you can come all the way through, even if it's a hand gripper, as long as you can squeeze it all the way with no pain, increasing your grip strength and your forearm strength will definitely help that.
okay.
Prior to that, you can always do some stretching.
Mhm.
So a good stretch is so you will have less stretch if you bend your elbow next, make a 90 degree and keep it in here.
Okay.
That is a shorter arc stretch. If you want more of a stretch, you can come out here. You feel the
Oh, I feel a
difference?
difference, definitely.
Now, if you have carpal tunnel syndrome or any kind of nerve, you do want to be really careful because you don't really want to stretch a nerve, you want to glide a nerve. So if you're getting any like shooting pains into your fingers, I would, this is a stretch for the muscles, but if you have some carpal tunnel going on, I wouldn't stretch that way.
Okay.
Okay. Um, you'll know it because you'll get a zing like, wow, what was that?
Mhm.
So that stretches your flexor muscles, then turn over and you can do the same thing and get a good stretch over your extensors. And
Okay.
that's always good to do before you warm up. And same with that. In here, you'll have less of a stretch. Out here, you're going to stretch more. We do a thing called a prayer stretch that we give people, and we have them put their, like, if they have some decreased wrist range of motion, we'll put them on a table, and we have them try to slide their elbows out.
Mm.
And if their wrist is tight, you'll see this.
Ah, yeah.
Okay. And then, just stop where you should feel. I always tell people, don't go through pain, go to pain.
Okay.
So just when you start to feel it, then that's where you need to hold it.
Okay.
And then maybe on the next one, you can get a little bit further, but you don't have to get there all at once. And again, patience with stretching is really important. It really is.
Every day, or how often do you,
Well, I would say it's based on how you feel.
okay.
I, for one, am not a flexible person. I definitely, even if I can get a little bit of stretching in, I'm lucky on the days that I work. I get a lot in just by
Sure.
showing patients
Oh, I
things.
bet.
But I'm not going to lie. I mean, I get lazy sometimes, and all of a sudden I'll wake up and I'll be like, oh, wow, that hurts. Then I'll stretch or I'll foam roll, and I'm like, it doesn't hurt anymore. Need to keep that flexibility.
Yeah.
And not, and again, we lose flexibility as we age.
Yep.
It's why, I mean, even things as simple as your neck, like just turning around to look behind you when you're pulling the car out, or I mean, now we have mirrors, our cameras now, but just different things, just to look over your shoulder.
Yeah.
It's crazy how tight we get, and we don't realize it till I can't tell you how often people say, like, wow, I never realized that I couldn't do that, and we compensate, so then that hurts something else.
Yeah.
Something else starts to hurt. So
Yeah.
we're a kinetic chain. We really are.
Yeah. So let's move up. And so shoulders are always a big deal. And I know that they're super complicated.
Hmm.
But if, for instance, right now I'm limited by my range of motion because of my surgery, but are there tips that we can keep without falling while we're skiing, keep our shoulders healthy? Shoulders and neck are something I hear a lot, and
Yes.
recently neck, like
Yes.
things like stenosis and things like that, which I know have to be diagnosed with a doctor and
Yes.
physical therapist. But are there some things that we can do to be more preventative?
Absolutely. Shoulder issues. There's never a shortage of shoulder issues. And of course, at the first sign of pain, everybody says, I think I tore my rotator cuff. Most of the time, it's not. Or it could be a small degenerative tear that will heal with the right exercises. Not every tear needs surgery. Um, Impingement is very common. And what impingement is, and I'll try not to bore you with the details, but we I'm trying to think I'm thinking of how I explain this to my patients. So if you think about your shoulder blades as the core of your arms, like our hips and our back and our spine engages our core here.
Yep.
The shoulder, that's work calling. That's
Uh-oh,
okay.
uh-oh.
That's okay. They can wait. Um, our shoulder blades are like the core of our arm. They give us stability from down at our side like this to 90 degrees. That's our shoulder joint. Once we come up past 90 degrees like this, that's our shoulder blade and our rotator cuff muscles.
Ooh,
So what happens is our shoulder blade sucks in to our back and it rotates up.
yeah.
The shoulder blade rotates up and in. It does a lot. It retracts, it protracts, and it provides stability. And most of the time when we have pain, it's because we have impingement, because we've lost stability. One of the best patients I get are really, really hardcore bodybuilders, guys that come in that are muscle bound. Oh, I have this pain in my shoulder. And I said, oh, you're probably not working your back. Oh, I work my back all the time. I put them on their stomach. I have them put their arms out. I can push them down with 2 fingers because they're not sexy muscles to work.
Yeah.
They're little stabilizing muscles, that are very functional. But, everyone likes the glamour muscles. They like the pecs. They like the biceps. That's why I always say that's why there's mirrors in gyms, just so you can see the front of yourself. And actually, one of my coworkers now, he's a personal trainer and he is got a great physique and he is having terrible shoulder pain. And I put him down and I'm like, you're not working the right muscles. And he's like, you're right. You know? So the most common, there are postural muscles, and I've heard you say that often. So they're very important. So the simplest thing you can do is just retract. I tell people like you're squeezing a lemon between your shoulder blades, and you'd be surprised how many people can't do that, Amy.
Yeah.
They do this.
Oh,
They
really?
do this. Yeah, because they have never really engaged those stabilizers.
Okay, so
And that's
if you're watching this right now, I want you to try to imagine a little ball between your shoulder blades. Can you squeeze it back? This is part of my physical therapy, but I have to hold it back for 10 seconds.
10 seconds.
And
Yes.
I'm supposed to do that 3 times a day. I get a lot of pulling here, but I'm glad I had worked
Yes.
on those posture muscles before
Yes.
my surgery because I know what that should feel like. And I'm feeling the stretch here, which I'm trying to get. Anyway, sorry to, so
No, that's fine.
try that. If you can't, I want you to work on those posture muscles.
Yes, I am shocked at how many people cannot simply retract their shoulder blades.
Okay.
So a few things, the best thing is have somebody watch you because you're really coming back and down.
Yeah.
One of the things I tell people, like if I have them doing an exercise like with the cords, like a row, I say, think about putting your elbows in your back pocket,
Mm,
and I said, don't go past your trunk, but put your elbows in your back pocket and you kind of can't help but to retract your shoulder blades if
okay.
you can think about it like
Oh,
that.
that's a great idea.
You feel that?
Oh yeah, definitely. Because you start doing this
Uh,
when you
yes.
try to do it too further back and you can't.
Yep. I would say just put your elbows in your back pocket. So scapular retraction is really great. It keeps the scapula loose and it starts to build those postural muscles. That's one thing you can do. Um, I'm trying not to. Yeah, I'm trying not to go down another rabbit hole here.
We could probably talk for hours, I'm
Well,
sure.
it's so easy because again, it is such a kinetic change. So sometimes people have elbow pain and the pain is never even in the elbow. It's coming from a weak shoulder. I
Really?
work with a lot of throwing athletes. I work in Delaware over by the University of Delaware, and we get a lot of throwing athletes, baseball and lacrosse and things, and these young kids, they're not even old ladies, they're coming in with all kind of elbow pain, and I'll look and I'll say your shoulder's weak. Sometime I'll never touch the elbow. I strengthen the scapular muscles and their pain goes away. I've had pitchers say my velocity's better now
Mm,
because they're not putting all that tension on their elbow because they're weak of it is a kinetic chain, and if there's a weak link in the chain, you're going to get pain somewhere.
yeah.
you know
Yeah.
and we're always trained, look further up the chain, look further up the chain.
Okay.
So that's why I said I'm trying not to go down that rabbit hole. But another exercise is we do what we call capital D's, and so what you're doing is you are bringing up, but then you're really retracting back and then reaching toward your feet. So you're elevating, retracting, depressing,
Okay.
and that's also a good warm up, like
Yeah,
especially
that's
if you
part of
have
my
some
exercise too.
yeah, if you have some shoulder pathology, these are very basic things to do. Then once you're past that, again, if you want to work on strengthening those postural muscle, rows are very good for that. And I know we do a lot of them with you.
Mhm.
And again, it doesn't start with the you usually with a row can do a heavier weight, but do what's comfortable and really work on the form.
Yes.
I tell people like think about retracting first and then rowing it up and squeeze.
Yeah, one of the
you
biggest
know
mistakes I see when I'm in a group class or something is people are folded forward and they're trying to row.
yes.
It's only working those sensitive back of the shoulder, little tiny muscles, where if you retract, then
Yes.
you go, oh yes, that's the one I'm trying to work.
Nothing makes me feel better than when I have somebody who's like, oh, I can really feel that. Like how like they've never felt it before. And sometimes like if you can't, like sometimes people are so weak, I'll have them do it over a physio ball.
Oh,
Just to get the right, or if they have back issues and they can't bend over or they can't lay, down. Again, just another modification. I'll put a big physio ball on a chair. I say just lay comfortably on it. We'll do one side at a time. I have them literally just lay on it. And at first I have them practice that retraction and make sure they're feeling that squeeze. Then I say, now, like you're pulling up and then hold that squeeze. Don't saw your arm, you know,
Yeah.
just get there and feel that squeeze. And sometimes they've just never have felt it before. And it's amazing. It's amazing how much people's body, like you really have to have body awareness, to really feel what you're supposed to be working, because you've gotten through life compensating. And
Ex-
then once you start trying to exercise and use heavy weights, that's when the problems start to sink in. So again, it's form, 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 and if people can just use what's comfortable, you will get there. You'll get there. Everyone starts so motivated. I get it. I have been down that road myself, and you want to be here today. At 62, I have finally realized patience. Enough is enough. If I only have 20 minutes today, it's enough. It's enough, right?
Love, love, love that. Oh my gosh.
It's enough.
I was talking to someone the other day, and I said, I know these concepts, but it's
Yeah.
just so reaffirming to hear an expert validate some of the things that I'm trying to get across. So thank you so much.
Oh
Now,
no, Amy, you do a great job of
oh,
that.
thank
And it is one of the things I really do love about your whole format, is that you do, and you talk about osteoporosis, and the other day I was watching something the other day, and you said a member called who just started out too rough, because you were doing something, and you said, I'm going to call you out here.
you.
And I started laughing, and you know, I just, if you are over 50 and you're attempting to move every day, meaningful functional movement for 20 to 30 minutes, you're already ahead of a lot of people.
Yeah,
So just do what you can do, that all that stuff, just movement is so good for us. It's so good for flexibility. And like I said, there's a lot of shoulder stuff I can't do because I lose my form. And it took my coworker to call it out. I was doing something at work one day, and they're like, "You're hiking your shoulder." I was like, "What?" I couldn't. And sure enough, I mean, and now I know. Like I always stand in front of it where I can. And if I start seeing this, I'm like, "Oh, that's too heavy." I've injured this arm. It's never going to be like this one. But it doesn't keep me from doing anything.
right. Modifying is not cheating. So
Right.
saying that.
Exactly.
I'm gonna make a
Exactly.
shirt. I'm gonna make a shirt that says that. And that's the other thing. I don't know if you can see, I've got my new office where I'm now, my desk is over here, but my husband put mirrors on my doors in
Oh,
my workout room. This is my personal workout room. And of course I have mirrors where I film. But if you
sure.
can just watch yourself and think about, making sure the shoulders aren't coming up to here, making sure you're reaching back and not bringing your head forward, and looking at yourself in the mirror. If you can, it really does help. Or please just reach out. We could get on a Zoom call here, and I could
Mhm.
watch you do a couple of the moves, and
That's
I can
great.
maybe pinpoint a spot that you're not working. Becky, one of our members, she reached out because of her neck, that she got diagnosed with stenosis, and that's very serious, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But I suspect it was happening well before that, and some of the things that she was doing were probably using those muscles more than they were ready for, or
And it flared it up.
and it flares up. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. And you would be surprised. I mean, we have a little joke. We have a little joke at work. Like there are some people who just they don't feel their position in space, and they wanna lift up something here, and instead of using a bicep, I'm telling you, they're hiking their shoulder, they're forward in their head, they're bending their back, and they don't even realize it. They don't even realize. So we always laugh because and it was actually a patient who coined this phrase. She's like, "I'm a motor moron." And I said, "Well, I would never call you that." She's like, "I think I am." But by the time she left, she was amazing. She actually had body awareness, and it has nothing to do with being athletic. It's just she was a very busy woman all her life, hardworking, never took care of herself. She did the best she could to get through. And if that hurt, then she did it this way. And she was finally taking some time for herself. And she left and she was wonderful. And she, you know, she was healthy enough and she was not perfect. She was not perfect, but she definitely was in a much better spot. And she said, I'm going to continue this. She said, maybe getting injured was the best thing that could have happened to me.
Yeah.
It was amazing. It was amazing to see her transformation. So it can happen, and it doesn't have to be in this big grandiose way that we think it has to be.
Yeah.
It just doesn't. And changing positions too. And I think you've mentioned that
Yeah.
position, this position of scaption, kind of like where you would put your hands if you were going to give somebody a hug.
Mhm.
Position of scaption is our functional position, and it aligns like the head of the humerus and everything to really avoid that pinching
Yeah.
as opposed to doing pure
From
what we call
side,
ab.
yeah, lateral,
Oh,
yeah. That so coming out to at more of an angle. Okay.
yes.
Okay.
And changing the angle of your hands. If thumb up is always a good position if you have shoulder pain.
Okay.
That's always a really good position. If but there's exercises that you do that are palm down or palm up. If that's too much, just go neutral.
Yeah.
Change the angle. And it's still effective. It's still effective.
And I've seen some experts too with regards to a press up, working on the upper part of your shoulders, just pulling them in this way a little bit.
Hmm.
Is that something that good
Yeah,
with?
because mid-range is your strongest range.
Ah,
That's where we do most things, mid-range. So if that's where you can go, you don't have to come all the way out here.
I mean going pushing up.
Oh, pushing up like this, just
Yeah.
going like halfway. Yes,
Yeah. Or this
absolutely.
this versus this up.
Yep.
This up versus this up. Is there any?
Well, if you're having, sometimes you may have pain out here if you have joint tightness or impingement. So in here may feel a little better
So
and
just
just change the
so
angle.
in general, if something doesn't feel right, play with angles and
Play with the angle before you give up.
before you give up. Yeah, I love that.
Don't give up. I'm trying to think too. There was something else I wanted to add to that. Sometimes when we were talking about weight bearing, because I mean, and again, push-ups, wrist, shoulder, like if you have any of that pain,
Yeah,
any kind of padding, roll up a towel. I think we talked about this, yoga blocks, things like that.
the perfect
There's
push.
so there's so many ways to modify, and um changing angles for everything, your wrist included. That will definitely help. What else? Let's see. I did take a couple notes down here. I was trying to think of some of my patients and what they do wrong. Oh, one of the things that if planking is really, really difficult and everybody wants to work their core, are you familiar with dead bugs? The
Yes.
exercise where you
Yeah.
lay on your back?
Yeah.
That works your core almost as well as a plank, believe it or not. A lot of my patients can't get in plank positions because they have shoulder pathology. But again, even in rehabbing the shoulder, we have to look at the core. We can't ignore other things. So a lot of times we will have them do dead bugs if they can't plank.
Okay.
They're funny because they'll be like, "Oh, I can't do that." I'm like, "That's okay. We have a modification. You
Yeah.
can still do it." Um, have you ever heard of an open book stretch?
No.
So this is really good too for shoulder. You may be doing this at some point when you continue down your recovery.
Yeah.
It's where you, so if you're working the
Oh,
left shoulder,
I do. Lay on your side and you open.
yes,
That's
and
my that's now I'm only allowed to go 90 degrees so far. I'm not
yes,
supposed to go all the way back yet, but
yes.
that's one of them. Interesting.
So that would be really good for your members as well if they have some shoulder or even some pec tightness will create shoulder pain.
Yeah.
So when we were talking about stretching the wrist, also stretch the pecs. You do that on the foam roller.
Mhm.
If you can't get on a foam roller, get in a doorway and just lean in,
Because
just
that's the antagonist to poor posture, right? Is our tight
yes.
chest muscles. If they're tight, they just pull us
They
naturally.
pull us in. Yes, exactly. And then that creates impingement in here.
Mhm.
Because if I can go nerd on you here for 1 second.
I love it.
So impingement is when you come up overhead and you get this like catching pain. So what happens there is the capsule, your glenohumeral capsule, where your humerus sits, the head of your humerus. Usually the humerus sits in there, that capsule is flexible and we can move without pain. What happens is when that gets tight, it pushes the head of the humerus forward. And then when we go to raise up, it pinches the tendon right here.
Mm.
And you go, every time I lift up, or every time I go out. And it's because there's such a small space there, and the long head of your bicep and your supraspinatus muscle go right through there. And so every time you go up, you just pinch and pinch and pinch, and it just gets inflamed. And then everyone's like, I'm done. I'm not doing this anymore.
Yeah.
And that's why scaption is a good position. But again, posture by opening up. People will come in sometimes and I'll just have them work on bringing, and they're like, yeah, when I do it with my shoulder squeezed, it doesn't hurt,
Mm.
and of course we have to work on the flexible capsule to reach back here and stuff, but it's crazy. It's crazy the things that create pain when there's really nothing wrong with us that we can't fix.
That's awesome to hear. Oh my gosh, I love
Yeah,
that. Now, you said, I'm going to honor our time. You said you had some resources that you wanted to share with
I
folks.
did. Just a couple clinical pearls, if you will. That's what we call them at work. So we had talked about the cords and the bands as a
Yes.
modification.
Yes.
Um, the other thing is for thumb pain, there is a resource that we use at work for our patients. This book was written by an occupational therapist who I don't know personally. I have heard her speak, and this book's been around for a while. It's called Caring for the Thumb,
Mm-hmm.
and it is by Jan Albright. She's a occupational therapist and certified hand therapist. And the nice thing about this book is you get two books in one, right and left thumb, so that the pictures are easy to understand. It talks about the anatomy and what could be, creating your pain. It gives you some very simple exercises to do. But again, of course, before doing any of this, I would definitely make sure it's okay with your doctor. Um, but it talks about stability and things to avoid. And then there are a couple of things that you can do for support. Like if you wanted to wear a brace or do some taping or things like that, that's all discussed in here. She even does show you how to do the KT taping, which we do a lot of at work. Are you familiar with
I'm
KT
not.
taping?
No.
So KT taping is kinesiology tape, and you see it a lot of the times in the Olympics,
Yep.
the volleyball play. So you
Swimmers.
tape.
Yeah.
There's a million reasons why you tape somebody. It can be for mechanical correction. It can be for pain. It can be for lymphedema. It can be for a lot of different reasons. I have taken a course in that, and I use a lot of taping with my patients. Sometimes it's just for postural correction and biofeedback.
Oh.
Sometimes I'll just simply put an X on somebody's back, and every time they go like this, they feel that tape pull and they have to go like this.
What a great idea.
It is. I call it my shock collar. But there are also some very simple orthosis that you can use that may give you some relief of your pain. This is one, this is just a store-bought one. We got it on Amazon. It's called a Comfort Cool. It's neoprene. And if you're having pain at the base of your thumb,
Mhm.
this supports it really, really nicely. And the way you would Google that, oh, the Velcro is not sticking, because I've worn this to death. I wore this before I had my surgery a lot. Um, if you Google this, you want to look for CMC restriction splint. But the brand is called Comfort Cool. And again, I don't get any kickback here. These are just the brands that I have found through the years that patients like, or that it works. And I think this runs about $15, but it
Okay.
does give you that nice little support that you need down there where you're having that base of the thumb. And it's still easy enough that you should still be able to exercise. It's not too restrictive. It just gives you the right amount of support. You
Okay.
can also have a custom orthosis made by any hand therapist or occupational therapist. If you just would need a doctor's prescription for that.
Yeah.
Um, this is a little more streamlined. It's a little more pricey. It's about $95. It's
Oh.
called a Meta, META, a Meta brace. Um, my patients who are on the verge of having surgery on their thumb but are really trying to ward it off until they retire, they want to go a couple more years, they find this nice to work in because it's a little bit lower profile,
Mhm.
and it's adjustable. It has a stay here, and you can kind of just adjust it to your hand, and it puts that glorious pressure right where you want it. Because as
Mhm.
you know, if you're having thumb pain, probably the thing that feels the best is just kind of holding it like that, right at that base. And that's what this brace does. That's called a meta brace. And that comes in a right and a left hand, but it is a little on the pricier side.
Okay.
Like I said, the pros and cons about it are that people who are still working and don't want to have anything drawing too much attention, they like this. It's a little lower profile, easy to travel with, and it does the job when they're, doing a lot of typing or whatever they're doing.
Okay.
Um, One other pearl I forgot to tell you about the thumb that
Mhm.
is a really great exercise if you're having any kind of thumb pain, regardless of the diagnosis, is that we tend to get super tight in this muscle right here, where the muscle that brings our thumb in,
Mhm.
right there, that gets super tight when we have thumb pain
Mhm.
because we tend to want to just keep it in there because it feels so good. By releasing that muscle, and you can do it by just holding, but most of the time you have a bad thumb on the other hand too, so it's hard to do. We do a lot of massage in there, but the other thing we tell people to do who live alone or they have they just don't have anybody to help them, we have them get a chip clip, the little clips that you put on the chip bag, and we have them put it there
Oh, oh,
and have it sit there for whatever they can tolerate, 3 to 5 minutes, until that muscle releases.
ah,
And then when it releases, they're like, wow, that really feels a lot better
ah,
because it's so tight that it's pulling on that joint and it's creating even, it's not, none of this is going to cure your wear and tear arthritis by any means, but these are preservation techniques, that's one of the muscles that gets super, super tight. And again, they're stability muscles. That's why it hurts when you pinch. So use built up things. Use, if you're doing I do a lot of chopping and cutting. And if that's bothering your thumb, just use a built up handle on your knife or your peeler, or, I think that Oxo brand now has a lot of built up. Back in the day, like you could only get them by going through a therapist, and now like it's very much more mainstream, but any kind of decreased gripping will relieve that pain in your thumb, um if it hurts, just reevaluate, how can I do this, that, you don't necessarily have to stop, but just, am I pinching too tight? By making it bigger, I'm going to put less. I've even told people to use like a what are those pens called that are kind of like a flare, but they had a gel, like a gel pen or something like that,
yeah, yeah.
where you don't have to press as hard or hold as tight,
Ah,
or the Dr. grips that are built up.
yeah.
Like they're just a little easier to hold when you have a painful thumb.
I never even thought about that. Thank
Yeah.
goodness that has not plagued me yet. Yet.
No, not too bad here yet either. I had my moment. Like I said, 2020 was quite the year.
Yeah.
But I do get see a lot of people, and the other thing is, of course, I am a huge proponent of therapy, but
Yes.
a little course of therapy is not the worst thing. Like we get a lot of people in with CMC arthritis, and they know we're not going to cure them.
Yeah.
But sometimes by giving them strategies or loosening up some tight muscles, giving them some small exercises to do with their hand, it preserves them. And I've had many people say, I definitely feel better, like, now I know what to do if I have a flare up or things like that. So, it's all
That,
about preservation.
that was one of the things I was as you were speaking, I was mentioning. I mean, if you are having these problems, please see your doctor. And if
Mhm.
they give you the go ahead to see a physical therapist, jump on it. If your insurance
Mhm.
is going to pay for it, oh my
Yes.
gosh, what a wealth of knowledge in figuring out the root cause of your own body. And so many people, I think, just don't want to see the doctor. They don't want that help. My mom was one of those.
Yeah, mine too.
Physical therapy is not going to help me. I said, Mom, I even went with her to a therapist program. I got to see a physical therapist for the first time for my surgery. And it was like, I was so excited. But
Mhm.
there's such a wealth of knowledge. And why wouldn't you do some of those? It might be stupid little things like lifting your shoulders up to your ears,
Yeah.
or pushing your scapular back, but it might help. So I would fully
Yes.
take advantage of if your doctor recommends that.
Yeah. And believe me, like we love to see it, we're specializing in hands, so that's who comes in. And yeah, that you're coming in with arthritis. We know, I mean, you come in with a fracture or something, we can fix you. You know, we're not going to cure your arthritis, but boy, we sure may be able to make you be able to still enjoy what you're doing. You
Yeah.
know, I have a cousin who does pottery, and
Mhm.
she's was having terrible issues with her thumbs. And I said, I can give you a few things to do. And I said, but I wouldn't stop the pottery. I said, that's actually like, especially on the wheel, that will probably feel pretty good. I told her some things to be careful of. I actually am going to go over and watch her do some just to see if I can help her
Mhm.
continue to do it. I'll never tell you to stop doing what you love.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, let's figure out a way.
I
let's
love
figure out,
that.
let's figure out a way so that you can continue to do it. But you'd be surprised how many people almost want to hear like, oh,
Uh-oh.
nope, they said I could. And I'm like, oh no, you're going to exercise here. You can do this.
Wow.
Um, so as long as, mindset,
Agreed. Agreed. I'm going to come
mindset.
back to, and we're going to wrap this up so I can let you go. It
Okay.
seems like you were getting bugged by work. They need you more and more and more and more and more.
No, that was I'm sure that was about we're celebrating someone's 30th birthday tomorrow, and I'm sure they were just checking to make sure I did my job.
Okay. Awesome. Well, thank you, Jean, so
Thank you
much.
for
This
having me.
was
It
so
was fun.
informative. You are such a wealth of knowledge, and I just so appreciate you helping pay it forward and helping us women
Oh,
over
love it.
50 keep moving and feel better, even as the start
Absolutely.
aches and pains and age start to creep in. Now I could, if you have some questions for Jean, I could, but I'd prefer you talk to your doctor or physical therapist in your area for very, very specific.
Or occupational therapist.
Excuse me, occupational therapist.
That's okay.
That's who actually I saw. I wasn't a physical.
Both
I didn't even know.
specialize in hands, so
Okay.
that's okay.
Okay. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So thank you so much, everybody. Thank
Yes,
you again for your membership and being here because I'm so proud of you. It takes a lot to give ourselves the attention and the care that we need. But if we
yes,
don't do it, we won't be there for everybody else that needs us. So we've got
that's
to
right.
be a little selfish. We're allowed to be selfish. All right? You're allowed to be
Yes,
selfish.
yes.
You
Yes,
deserve it.
self-care. Absolutely.
Yes. Yes.
Absolutely. We've earned it, right? At
We
this age.
sure have.
We have earned it at
God.
this age.
Oh
And
my
if I
God.
can be of any help, any further help to you, or, I don't have all the answers, but, if someone has a specific issue and needs maybe a modification suggestion or whatever, reach out to me. It's fine.
Oh, that's sweet.
Okay.
I will put all the links in the description below for the products that you said. I'll go to Amazon and get those links. Enjoy your day, enjoy your week, and you and I will talk soon.
Perfect. Thank you for having me.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Wasn't that awesome? I learned so much, and I hope you did too, about how to preserve and maintain your joints as you get older so you're healthy enough to do all those things that you love to do in life. If you'd like to try a little bit more, I just released a brand new strength training program. In fact, I'm going to show you what that looks like inside the Be Healthy Enough digital fitness studio. This is what it looks like when you log in. I just released our May 2023 workout calendar. Here's the on our member site, the interview I did with Jean, some new releases I just released, which I release every month, and then this new Strong Enough basic strength training program. I got so many requests for members who just want the basics. It is so scary sometimes to start strength training, but strength training is the secret to longevity as long as you do it safely and don't hurt yourself. So I walk you through my entire proven process to build strong muscles and strong bones, improve your metabolism, keep your body healthy enough to do, again, all those things you love to do. I have instructions, modifications, a whole flow chart with an ebook accompanying it. Step 1, just getting your form right, adding weights, increasing your weights. And I even have a workout here, specialized workout to do if your wrists or hands or shoulders start to hurt. All right, back to me. If you want to try that, I'll leave the link below. And I also offer a special discount if you click that link. It's a private link. Only you can use that. Enjoy it, and I hope to see you in the next video. Bye.